some other unfortunate news throughout the week, and I'm sure all the listeners know about the unfortunate passing of DMX. Earl Simmons, at the age of 50, has passed away after a battle in the hospital, and his family was surrounding him. It's a very sad time. Definitely a legend of rap. It is super unfortunate, and it's just weird. You know what I mean? Because I was just like, man, like the only two like. Well, no, like there's a few artists that are starting to pass over time, especially for me as I, also get older. That I'm seeing, I'm just like, I, I like grew up listening to these dudes, so it was just like kind of
Yeah.
odd just to see them, passing away. It's like, hey, like that just is what it is, and that's just the way life goes. But I mean, it's super unfortunate, and I, definitely praise to his family. You know,
Yeah, like I share that same sentiment, man, where you're seeing like these artists that you grew up with and you're like, "Oh, such and such passes." From athletes to artists, like over the past couple of years, like we went from like I know I was a fan of Nipsey beforehand, so like you have like the Nipsey Hustles, the Kobe Bryants, and now you have someone like DMX, and it's like it's super impactful because it's like he had hits throughout our whole childhood from elementary school to high school essentially. So it's extremely sad. I will say this, like my prayers go out and my condolences go out to his family and friends that were close loved ones to him. But I also would say this, that I know from looking at interviews with X over the years and understanding like his backstory, I I'll say this is that though it's an upsetting thing, at least he's at peace now, right? When it comes to because of just the battles that he was facing and the things that like the even like he said day in and day out, it was every day is a fight because of addiction, because of just personal life and whatever else that just hampers down on you. And I think I'm not sure if he was like that, if he had any like clinical prescriptions or anything, whether it be bipolar, depression, or something like that. But I can say at least the dog's at peace now. Speaking of streaming that we were talking about earlier, like I know his numbers got to. I know the streaming numbers on him have to be crazy because I was out last night and every car that drove past is either slipping, um, Rough Riders anthem, X gonna give it to you, like every song you could, any song that you could think of by X. Like it's sad, but it's unfortunate that hip hop lost a legend such as him. And in hindsight, now you can look at it and you realize how influential he was to music when you look at music today, especially. So
and
it's
real
just
quick
sad.
before because Lau, I want you to say your piece as well. But like, it's crazy to me how like a lot of like the things that encapsulate, I guess DMX to a lot of people isn't slipping, but like the songs I know him for, like they're not. They have like more. I don't know. They're just not that song. That is a song, and I understand why people like it. It's just not the song that comes to mind when it's DMX. Like it just kind of blows my mind that so many people did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I think. Go ahead.
no, man, I don't want. I really like what you're hearing. I mean, what you're saying. So go ahead, man. Finish up.
I get you on that. Like, I mean, I think so. I'm gonna say this right, and I think it's a generic. I think the statement is generic enough because it travels across all artists that pass. Unfortunately, when these artists pass, you have people that were like big fans that are like major fans of these artists that they're not when this artist passed, they're listening to their actual favorite music, and then you that someone to play a whole album. You know what I'm saying? While other people are like, "Oh, I remember this song and I remember this song," and I think that's what that comes from because like I think Slippin' is like one of his big songs only because it's it's just such a the type of artist X was, and we all know that some of the type of music he was making, that was like a different type of song compared to a lot of the music that we know him for. So I think that's one of the reasons. And on top of it, when you listen to that song compared to like when you reflect on X's life as well as you reflect on that song, you see how there's so many similarities to in hindsight now. Where you're
No,
like,
I get
so
it. I get it.
that's my thing. But I totally understand you. I was the same way with Nipsey Hussle. When Nipsey passed, everybody blast victory lap, and I'm like, if you're a real Nipsey fan, if you really liked his music, Victory Lap. I'm not saying it has to be your favorite album. It has to be your favorite album, but it doesn't have to be. But most people that I know that are real Nipsey fans, Victory Lap wasn't their favorite album. So I knew some people that are like, oh yeah, I'm blasting Victory Lap all day, blah blah blah. So I totally understand it. I definitely understand it, but it's nonetheless it's just sad that we lost someone that's like a legend. It's very weird.
Rest in peace, DMX, man. Rest in peace to the real deal life New York legend. This is a legend, a real legend in the rap game. He had hits, he had anthems, he had classics. He was a prominent figure in rap, period. He had a run, he had an era. The man was in few movies that people could talk about, you know? So shouts out to DMX. I'm glad that he got his flowers before he passed because everybody was fucking with him before he passed. Even when he was caught up and even when he was caught up in battling his addiction for the past X amount of years, people were still fucking with his music. You would see it in any form of entertainment, whether it was a sporting event, a random movie, commercial, et cetera, et cetera. People were still fucking with DMX. Nobody disliked DMX as a person, and nobody disliked his music. People were not happy with his addiction problems and all that, but that's more of a personal thing. And that was not like, oh, he's a bad guy now, we have to look at him as a bad guy, because he never was a bad guy. He was generally a good person. Especially, I think the thing that's being talked about more that wasn't talked about then is the fact that the guy always gave prayers publicly or behind the scenes. The guy, he always gave prayers, and he was a positive dude. Unfortunately, he's a perfect example of a human being. Everybody has their battles behind the scenes. Everybody has their challenges, and everybody is dealing with something that is they struggle to overcome. And unfortunately, he did lose his battle, but we shouldn't look at his life and his legacy on that moment of time, or his problems with addiction. We shouldn't look at that. We should look at the overall package. And the overall package is this guy is a rap legend. This guy was generally a good human being. This guy has inspired plenty of people, not just in rap music, but beyond rap music. He was getting a lot of love, man. And that made me happy because I'm so glad people were giving him proper love. And his music going number one in Apple Music, this and a third, to me, it was just like a celebration of the hits and the anthems that he's put out over the years. And to me, it wasn't fake love shit. It wasn't at all. To me, it was like people knew who DMX was, man. Right. Even to people who aren't rap connoisseurs like us. You mentioned DMX. Yeah, I know DMX. Party Up, a Rough Riders anthem. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or Ain't No Sunshine. You know what I mean? So I think I'm not trying to be sad about the situation. I'm trying to be more celebrating his career,
give him his respect.
Exactly. And RP DMX, you are by far one of the greatest rappers in the modern era. When it comes to New York rappers, you're up there. Some people might arguably put you top 5 or whatever. Shouts out to you. You are, your legacy will live on through your music, and I have nothing bad to say about it, and not trying to be any negative, all positive. So RP to the man. Let his legacy continue to live on. And prayers to his family, all his close friends, and all his supporters in the rap game, even outside the rap game. Prayers to you guys, because I know you guys are dealing with it a lot more than what the fans are. So
yeah. No, that's a fact. Like he was the only rapper to ever do 5 #1 albums, right? To have 5 #1 albums on Billboard, put out 2 albums in 1 year that both go platinum. Like
good albums.
It was It's Dark and Hell is Hot and
Flesh in My Flesh.
Flesh in My Flesh. Yeah, like, and he said he only did it because they told him they would give him $1 million if he put out a second album in the same year.
Yeah, both of those albums are really good, yo.
They're both classics.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, like, so it's like similar to what Lau was saying. Like he was similar to what both of you guys were saying, where he was able to get his flowers fine. He was able to get his flowers while he was alive, and everything, the reflections that we see of X, whether it be the challenge, the DMX challenge on social media, right, where you know is Brenda, Felicia, Tanya, Tisha, like those, to even like we have a Christmas song for the rest of our lives with DMX. DMX will only be the Christmas song that we'll use from moving forward. That is the Christmas song from now on. So he's left an imprint in his life. I know a friend was telling me he was at a concert. He performed at a concert. Some girl in the front was crying. So afterwards, I guess he had performed, talked to her during the show, and afterwards he was like, "Here's my number. If you ever have a problem with whatever you're going through, you can always call me." So like, it just shows to you like how you were saying, like he was a human. He was a human. He wasn't like, oh, because I got all this money, I'm a big rap star, blah blah blah. Like he never got into the hype. He never got into the gimmicks of things. Like he was big on saying like he keeps it raw and unfiltered and uncut. So like he was never one of those artists to go put on a dress to like just to get views or anything like that. So
Well, before we move on, what I was gonna say is that like I think there's a lot of positive moments that DMX had. So I guess that's kind of my point that I was trying to make earlier. Like we don't have to, remember him just for his struggles. Like, like he did have like songs that got people like amped up. You know what I mean? Like and like actually did like especially towards the end of his career, like it looked like things were going better. Like, so you know what I mean? Like I think we should not just remember him for his struggles, but also remember that he did some dope shit,
yeah, that's a fact. Actually, a fun fact. Nobody knows this. So I'm big into cooking. You guys know that. So I actually learned something from DMX when it came to cooking very early, very early on, and prior to me actually cooking. Do you guys remember? I think it was on BET or MTV back in the day. There was like they were doing like a reality show following DMX when he was on tour or something, and he was like, I had never done it up to this point, but he was making like scrambled eggs in the microwave, and it was one of these very weird instances where he was just like, oh, I think he was on tour. He was like, oh yeah, we're gonna eat, but I'm gonna just cook everything in the microwave. It was just one of those moments where I was like, ever since then, I don't cook eggs in the microwave now, but it was one of the cooking techniques that I've adopted over the years. So just a fun fact. X will live on in all of us. I'll say that much.
Yes, sir. RP Darkman X.
Yeah, and in other news, similar to what